Hey everyone, this is Eric Pratt of Gun Owners of America. Have an important update for you all, so I want to encourage you to please share this video. As you know, last Friday the country was rocked with another mass shooting, and here at GOA certainly our hearts break for the victims and our hearts go out to them. It also makes us upset because Congress continues to sit on its hands and do nothing. I mean, I'll tell you what. If our congressmen were forced to work in the same gun-free environment that our children are forced to be educated in, I think we would see immediate change. But it's very interesting. This shooting, while tragic, was different in some ways because it hasn't fit the media's narrative. The media is so obviously trying to manipulate the thinking of the American public. And so people have been asking GOA, what can we do about this? Well, I have an answer for you, which I'll give you in a second. But let me say this, if you're frustrated with the media, you are not alone. Some of you probably, you listen to Rush Limbaugh. He's often called the media the drive-by media, right? Because they will focus a lot of attention on a story very briefly, and then they're gone. They drop it, right? So they're like drive-by journalists, hence the term drive-by media. Well, the anti-gun liberal media has all but dropped the story on Friday's shooting in Santa Fe, Texas. But that's because none of the facts are helping advance their agenda. For starters, the Texas students think much differently than the students in Parkland, Florida. It's very interesting. The Texas Lieutenant Governor Daniel Patrick has been visiting the wounded kids that are in the hospital. And he's reported that what he is hearing overwhelmingly from them is that they want armed teachers. Texas has 172 school districts where teachers can be armed. Now that may sound like a lot, but that's actually only 17% of the school districts. So the reality is no school that has armed teachers has had a public mass shooting occur there. I mean, that is the best way to stop a mass shooting, is to prevent it from ever happening. I mean, that's what Israel's done, right? They had a couple of attacks, a couple decades ago. So they started arming security guards. They started arming some of their teachers. Now their kids can learn in peace, even though they are in the midst of turmoil, in the midst of terrorism. Their kids are learning peacefully. So the kids in Texas, they want teachers to be armed as well. And of course, that doesn't fit the drive-by liberal media narrative, does it? I mean, their narrative is that it's the gun culture that's at fault. How many NRA and GOA members have committed mass shootings? Answer, none. Right? Zippo, zilch, zero, nada. It's not the gun culture. It's the liberal culture that's killing us. And sometimes literally. I mean, you remember the Bernie Sanders supporter who opened fire on Republican congressmen at a baseball field last year? Or how about the Southern Poverty Law Center supporter who shot up the Christian Family Research Council? I mean, he had Chick-fil-A sandwiches with him that he planned to smash in the faces of his dead victims. Sometimes the very people who say they are peace-loving are literally the very ones who are gunning down innocent victims. But even if there weren't any liberal wackos who were going on killing sprees, it's their liberal policies that are killing us. Almost 98% of the public mass shootings in this country occur in gun-free zones. And I know you know these statistics, but these are the places where guns are banned. Killers are targeting these gun-free zones over and over and over again. And why? Well, for the same reason that they're not targeting gun ranges and police stations. It's because they want to be the only one with a firearm. Hey, several mass shooters have admitted as much to this. You have the Pulse nightclub shooter in Florida, the Aurora Theater shooter in Colorado, the Charleston church shooter in South Carolina. I mean, they all wanted to attack other places initially, but they ended up choosing the places that were gun-free zones. They ended up going after the soft targets. I mean, I can't repeat this enough. The policies of the anti-gun left are what's killing us. Their ideas are the policies that are failing. You know, think about it. They want so-called assault weapon bans, right? I mean, it's a made-up term, but how would that have worked in Santa Fe, Texas? I mean, this kid used a revolver and a shotgun, right? So a so-called assault weapon ban would have done nothing. Anti-gun liberals want to impose greater background checks. They want age restrictions on purchasing firearms. How would that stop somebody who stole his firearms? This kid took his father's guns. He essentially stole them. How would all these prior restraints, how would any of them made a difference in this case? They wouldn't. Or how about, these red flag laws, so-called? You know, we're going to look at a person's history, and if there's certain warning signs, etc., even if they haven't been convicted in a court of law of anything, we are going to come and confiscate their guns. But you know what the Texas governor said? There were no red flags in this case. This was the first time this kid is showing up on the radar. See, the policies that the anti-gun left, the ones that they're pushing, are useless. And not only that, the media, in their zeal to publicize these shootings so that they can demonize firearms, they're actually encouraging more copycats. You know, forensic psychologists have begged the media to stop giving these stories the attention they give them. They've begged them to stop using the killers' names. Here at Gun Owners of America, by the way, we don't use the killers' names. But forensic psychologists and security analysts, they're telling us that these killers are starved for attention, and the way they get that attention is to commit a mass atrocity. You know, the Sandy Hook shooter, I'm not going to say his name, but investigators, in looking at that, said that what he had done was like a doctoral thesis. He had studied previous mass shootings. He had studied how much media attention each one got. And so his research was in like a 7-foot-long spreadsheet where investigators said his name was going to be at the top, like a score sheet. That was the Sandy Hook shooter, looking for claim to fame even in his death. You've got the Columbine shooters, or the community college shooter in Oregon, or the Gabby Gifford shooter, all making statements indicating that they wanted that fame. I mean, even if it was in their death. You know, nevertheless, the media still keeps giving these shootings massive attention, not because they're all that common, but because it pushes their anti-gun agenda. And look, I know that you know all this, but the question is, what can we do about it? Well, GOA is fighting back. And one way that we're doing this is to change the electoral landscape. I mean, already we've been making a huge splash in this year's elections, helping pro-gun candidates win their primaries. GOA has been very, very active, not only in getting people to the polls, but we've made several trips into some key states. For example, we're hoping to see a huge changeover in Texas. And if that happens, then we'll be able to repeal gun-free zones in schools there and pass constitutional carry in the Lone Star State. We've been active in other states too, but Texas has presented itself as a special opportunity this year, and so we're right in the middle of it all. And so that's on the political front. But we've also been active in the war of ideas. We're getting the word out that guns are used more often to save life than to take life. You know, we're doing some national TV shows, internet national shows. I was on One America News Network this week with Graham Ledger, so cable programs, on some other shows as well. We're posting Guns Save Lives stories in our self-defense corner on our website. You can see them at the URL on your screen. Obviously, the drive-by media won't tell you about stories like the Illinois school resource officer who just last week stopped a school shooting. They're not going to tell you about the Florida man who recently used an AR-15 to stop an invasion of 7 people who attacked him in his home. But those are stories that are in our self-defense corner, and they're on our Facebook page and Twitter, etc. So, all to say, GOA is getting the word out. But one more important thing, we're also encouraging gun owners to contact their representatives to get H.R. 34 and H.R. 38 passed. Now, H.R. 34 deals with repealing gun-free zones in the schools. H.R. 38 deals with allowing people who are enabled to carry concealed to also carry in our nation's schools. You can call the number on your screen to speak with your congressman. Urge them to demand that Speaker Ryan bring up H.R. 34 and H.R. 38. Now, speaking of Ryan, gun owners have been pretty disappointed with his leadership in regard to Second Amendment rights. But with Ryan stepping down, GOA is taking the lead in generating support for a real pro-Second Amendment champion, Jim Jordan of Ohio. Jordan is a strong pro-gun representative. He's the co-founder of the House Freedom Caucus, which is a group of pro-gun, liberty-minded congressmen in the House of Representatives. Most certainly, he would be a welcome break from the string of Paul Ryan, John Boehner, go-along to get-along speakers. So, again, you can contact your representative as well at the URL on your screen to get some support for Jim Jordan for Speaker. So in addition to all this, hey, we will be having more alerts and live streams coming soon that will really deal with other looming threats to our gun rights. But in the meantime, please be sure that you're connected with GOA on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram. Make sure you're getting our email alerts at the URL on the screen. That's really important too. That's where we have a lot of our contact with our activists. And as always, you can connect with me on Twitter as well, Eric M. Pratt. That's Eric with a CH, M. Pratt. And finally, you can join GOA at gunowners.org/join for less than a box of ammo. So anyway, I want to thank you for being with me for this important update. Until next time, thanks for watching, and please be sure to share this video.